Hello fellow Clashers, I am Kairos Time and welcome to Winning Touchdown. Today I've got video 1, best cards to draft. I'm going to go into detail as to why you should pick specific cards over other cards, and I hope you enjoy. Okay guys, before we continue, I did want to quickly mention that there is going to be another video coming out, a video on optimal troop placement. I have played Touchdown way too much this week because it's so fun, but also because I want to give you guys the best strategies possible. Make sure if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel so that you do get to see that video as soon as it comes out. I've got some good stuff planned for it. Starting out, we have win conditions. Now, any card can be a win condition in this map mode. All it sometimes takes is just one little ice spirit to cross that finish line for you to actually win. But we're going to refer to these cards as win conditions because they are traditionally known as win conditions. And I have them ranked in order. Upper left hand, best card to draft is the Hog Rider by far. He's so strong in this mode. A lot of people are calling for a nerf, and a lot of people also just wanted to be taken out because he's so good. So obviously best pick is the Hog Rider in my opinion. Next we have the Golem, and I think the Golem as well is such an obvious choice if you have to choose between the Golem and any other card other than the Hog Rider. It has so much health and is so tanky that a lot of times your opponents just can't stop it before those Golemites actually end up crossing the line. Up next we have the Lava Hound. The Lava Hound is similar to the Golem in the fact that it just has so much HP, but the great thing about the Lava Hound is the fact that it will get close to that end zone, and if you don't pop it in time, then when it does actually pop, those Lava Hounds will end and spawn in the end zone, and that can give you a match. Next we have the Giant. Giant is a really great card as well. It's easy to support him. I like the fact that he's a cheaper win condition, still has a lot of HP. A lot of times the Giant is actually great as a distractor. A lot of people will actually overcommit to defending a Giant, so you can rush down the other side and actually get something cheap onto the other end zone. So Giant's great. Then we do have the Battle Ram. Now the Battle Ram is another really fast win condition, very excellent, kind of similar to the Hog Rider. He is a little bit easier to stop than the Hog Rider though because of the HP difference there, and as soon as he does hit defense and he turns into Barbarians, who are much easier to stop because of their slow speed in comparison to the Hog Rider. Next is the Three Musketeers. I found that unless your opponent does have Lightning in hand or the Rocket, which I found that a lot of times those are in the draft when Three Musketeers are available, but if you can keep those on your side and draft those cards yourself, or play when your opponent can't play those cards, then the Three Musketeers are very difficult to stop in a lot of situations. Similar is the Sparky. With its increased charge speed, the Sparky is actually really strong in this update, and especially for Touchdown, it's really difficult to stop that Sparky unless your opponent has something like the Rocket or the Electro Wizard. Next we have the Balloon. Balloon is a really great win condition in this game mode. A lot of balloons actually crossing over the finish line, and just because a lot of people underestimate the HP that a balloon has because they're used to having the assistance of the tower, and also because maybe they decided to draft something that does a little bit of damage, not very much damage, like a Princess or something like that. The balloon's a really great win condition. Then we do also have the Bandit. Now the Bandit is really, it's a cheaper out of all of these. It's kind of like a pseudo win condition, kind of a fake win condition, but it's the cheapest out of all of these, and as such you can actually get the Bandit going in through different places that require some fast defenses that a lot of times people will overcommit to defend against a Bandit because they have to. Mega Knight. Now Mega Knight is really tanky like the Golem and also like the Lava Hound, but the one disadvantage to the Mega Knight is two disadvantages to the Mega Knight is he's really expensive, and he's also easily distractible. So unlike those first 4 win conditions and kind of 5 win conditions there, the Mega Knight is a little bit easier to stop, but he's still a solid, especially if he's still a solid offensive win condition, especially if you can use him on a defense and then counter push with him. Next we have the Elite Barbarians. The Elite Barbarians are pretty good because they're fast. They're still very easy to distract, but the fact that they're expensive and the fact that they're expensive really and easily distracted makes them kind of difficult to win, but they're really fast, and so I would consider them to be good win conditions. There are a lot of other win conditions that I did not include on this slide because I just didn't think they were good enough. I didn't think that they were as good as these ones, and usually you'll have a better option than those. So things like the giant skeleton, for example, or even some other win conditions. So next we do have defensive buildings. Now from my experience, every player will have a defensive building. Whether it's a spawner, whether it's kind of a more offensive one like the mortar or the expo, or it's the tombstone. Every player will have a defensive building. Whether you draft it or your opponent drafts it, someone's going to have one. And so it's important to understand which defensive buildings are the best. And I think by far the tombstone is the best defensive building when it comes to touchdown. There are so many times when I've been playing with a tombstone and just one skeleton just scoots by and is able to make a win because of that. It's super fast and really cheap, and the fact that it's cheap and can stop like a battle ram or a hog rider for a relatively low amount of elixir is a really great option. Tombstone is by far the best in my opinion. The next three I think were kind of a toss-up depending on the decks and the way you're drafting. The Cannon, Inferno Tower, Tesla Tower. If I had to guess, I would say actually probably Inferno Tower would probably be the best of the next three, but it's pretty close. I think Cannon's pretty good because of its cheapness, and I think Tesla Tower is pretty good because its ability to cover both defense, or both ground and air threats. The Inferno Tower is really solid against things like golems and lava hounds, and is also a really great option. Next, I think, as far as defensive buildings go, would be the mortar. The mortar, I like the mortar because it's less expensive than the expo, but it also does some splash damage, has a really big long radius. The expo is also a really good one, but you do need to be careful when you're playing an expo, because there's a lot of times when I'll see somebody play down an expo right in the middle, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but if they play in the middle and then their opponent actually rushes one or the other lane with the hog rider, the expo is not going to pull that hog rider, and where you only have one defensive building in your hand and you can't necessarily rely on your teammate to play a good defensive building, a center place expo prematurely isn't always the best option. I think center place mortar is less risky, but a center place expo should only happen if you're playing it defensively in situations where you know that that's actually a good option. But if you're in that case, expo is a really great option to have. Next, we do have spells. Now, I consider the log to be the best spell in the match, or in the game, or in the touchdown. It wouldn't be a Kairos episode if there weren't some type of a tongue twister or something, but I think the log is the best. The fact that it can push back troops is really fantastic. I've had people bring up really good arguments for zap and arrows being the best. Arrows particularly because of its really wide radius, and that large radius actually is really great in a lot of situations. Zap I think is just extremely versatile. For 2 elixir you can use it to reset troops and even just stop troops for a split second. I think that can, like charging up troops and things, I think zap is a really great option. Tornado is really amazing for its ability to have a really wide radius and to pull troops back as well. I think tornado is a really excellent option. Now freeze is kind of a gimmicky card, and in a lot of other gameplay freeze isn't that great of a card, but in touchdown I think that it's a good option. I really do, as well as heal, because of their ability to just help troops get to that end zone when you have them going on. So like I've won plenty of matches with a hog rider where the opponent thought that they were going to the hog rider was going to die, and I've either frozen some troops or I've healed the hog rider, and the hog rider was able to get to the tower, or to the end zone, we should call it. Now, I did actually strongly consider putting poison in here. I think the poison isn't the greatest out of all of these spells. I think poison is probably next up in line, but I did want to mention that I think the poison is better than fireball, absolutely, and I think that the rocket and lightning are not great options because they're so expensive. You rarely want to drop 6 elixir to even stop one push, even if it's a good elixir trade, because a lot of times this comes down to being able to control all areas of the field, and that just allows you to control one part for such an elixir, for such an expensive card. So if you have the option, I think these are the better spells to draft, with Poison coming up next in the ranks. Next, we do have spawners. Spawners actually have a very special part in Touchdown. The fact that you do not have a defensive tower to be able to constantly apply pressure, or defensive pressure at least. I think that is that's why spawners do such a great job. I'm bringing Tombstone right back here because Tombstone's such a cheap option and it's so solid when it comes to Touchdown. Next, I would have to say is the Furnace. The Furnace just adds a lot of value, and is really great defensively, and just it has a lot. It's really tanky, and so it's good to pause or prevent a Hog Rider from coming through, or even a giant tank, and giving you some more time to be able to defend against that. Next, I would have to say the Night Witch is probably the next best option. The fact that she spawns bats requires some type of an anti-air defense and range as a range unit as well. And a lot of times people will only have a few of those, and sometimes you can scoot by with getting like a minion across or a bat across. And next, I would say is the Witch. The Witch is. I think the Night Witch is a little bit better than the Witch because the Witch is elixir. She's expensive, and one thing that I'll talk a lot about in my next video is that you don't want to have expensive troops, and you don't want to have expensive troops in your hand for a lot of different reasons. They're really good for like building up a good strong push, and I'll talk about that in my next video. But what you really want is to be able to cover a larger aspect of the field, and so that's why I think that generally cheaper troops are a little bit better. So that's why I think the Witch comes after the Night Witch, and that's why I think that the Barbarian Hut comes after the Spear Goblin Hut. The Spear Goblin Hut, another 5 elixir, pretty expensive, but does provide a lot of value, and a lot of times you can get a Spear Goblin going just across by itself. But the Barbarian Hut I think is last as far as these spawners are concerned, simply because it's just so expensive, and it's only really great against like a Golem. Or maybe even a giant as well. Sometimes a Hog Rider, but I think that's a little overkill. Usually if you defend a Hog Rider with a Barbarian Hut, then your opponent's going to be able to go down the other lane, and that's really going to put you in a tough spot. Next, I would have to say Cheap Runners are some of the best cards in the game. I cannot even tell you how many times I've just waited for my opponent to expend all of their troops and then put down like an Ice Spirit in the very edge of one lane, and that Ice Spirit just runs all the way. It's fast, it's cheap, you can spend a lot of them, and you can apply threats in a lot of different parts of the arena without having to spend a lot. And also they're really great at defending really quickly as well. I think that these Cheap Runners are really fantastic. You have the Ice Goblin, the Ice Spirit. Ooh, that's a new card. Ice Goblin. You have the Ice Spirit. You have the Goblins. I think that the Dark Goblin is a really great card because of its quickness. I like the fact that these quick cards are able to go and aid pushes really quickly. One issue that a lot of the time you'll have is not being able to actually support a push because it takes so long for your troops to actually get there. That's why I think these faster cards, that's another reason why I think these faster cards do a really great job in Touchdown. They're just so good at being able to get to the push quickly and being able to support your push quickly. And I think the Dark Goblin is an excellent example of this. Next, we have the Bats, a really great cheap runner. We have the Spear Goblins, the Fire Spirits. I think Fire Spirits may be like the worst of all of these, but still a good option. Typically, when you're drafting the Fire Spirits, your other option is the Ice Spirit, so most of the time you should probably pick the Ice Spirit. Next, I wanted to talk about Chargers. These are cards that just go really quickly. Obviously, there are some other cards like the Barbarian or the Battle Ram that I have mentioned before that would also be included in this category, but these are cards that just charge really fast and are good at getting to that end zone if you catch your opponent off guard. These are troops that people typically don't ignore. They know that they're coming, and so they're ready prepared. But a lot of times, if you have a couple of these, you can drop them on 2 different sides, and then your opponent's really in a tough spot. The lumberjack is especially fun because it does drop that rage, and that allows for a supported push to actually get through. A lot of times, I've gotten battle rams right through the end zone because I drop a lumberjack, then a battle ram. The opponent actually goes and defends against that lumberjack, but then that battle ram just runs right to the end zone. Dark Prince, I think, is a little bit better than the Prince, but I think that the Prince is pretty good if you know that you can spend that 5 elixir. Lastly, I wanted to talk about some other cards that didn't really fit into specific categories. We first off have the Electro Wizard and the Ice Wizard. Cards like these that actually slow your opponent's push down a little bit are really excellent options. I think that even though he got nerfed, I think the Electro Wizard is a great card to use. He offers so much utility. Even an Electro Wizard paired up with just a little bit of support can take out a Hog Rider by themselves and then offer an incredible push that your opponent has to really focus on defending. The fact that the Ice Wizard and the Electro Wizard can slow down troops is huge. Next, we do have the Inferno Dragon. The Inferno Dragon is one of those cards that I think is a good option, especially if you know your opponent is going to be having some type of a heavy tank. If you draft picked the Hog Rider and gave your opponent the Golem, that Inferno Dragon is just a really solid option right there. The Princess is a unique card in the fact that she's the one defensive card that I would actually recommend putting in the middle of the arena. She has such a big range that she's just very useful in a lot of different situations for applying pressure and also for really defending. She's good at getting rid of those cheap runner cards that I mentioned are so good to draft, and she's a really good option. A lot of the times you are trying to pick between a Princess and a Dark Goblin, and I think that you just cannot go wrong in either one of those picks. I think they're both good options. If I would have to say that I picked one more than the other, it would probably be the Dark Goblin, just because I think the Dark Goblin's better at offering quick offense when I want it to, but I do think that the Princess is a solid option to have in almost any type of situation. Next, we have the Knight and the Ice Golem, and I like both of these cards because they're cheap tanks, and cheap tanks do such a good job at soaking up damage, but then also offering some additional support on the offense. I can't tell you how many times I've won because of a Hog Rider and an Ice Golem in front of that Hog Rider. That push is so strong because you have to pull both of them, and if you don't have a building, good luck stopping both an Ice Golem and a Hog Rider before that Hog Rider gets to that end zone. Such strong cards in here. Now, there are a lot of cards that I actually have not even talked about. I'm not going to do it in a complete tier list, although you better believe that that's coming for Touchdown as a tier list Touchdown. But I did want to go over some of the best cards that I consider to be useful in Touchdown, so that you can get a little bit better at drafting and having the best cards. A lot of Touchdown is just knowing which cards are best to have, and hopefully this helps. For now, this is Kairos time ticking by, and we will see you in the arena.